Hi there, and welcome to StepAhead Sheets. Today, I'm going to walk you through our Couples and Roommates Expense Tracker, a simple and powerful tool to manage shared expenses, whether you're a couple splitting costs or roommates managing household bills. By the end of this video, you'll know how to set up the spreadsheet, track your expenses, and reconcile payments, all while keeping things clear and stress-free. So let's dive in. When you open the spreadsheet, you'll see 4 tabs. We will go through each one from left to right, but let's start with the Setup tab. As a reminder for all of our spreadsheets, the cells that are gray are the ones that allow for input. Most other areas are protected from entering info to ensure the spreadsheet works without breaking any formulas in the background. Here, you'll answer a few simple questions to get started. Enter the year you're tracking expenses for and add the names of up to 4 people or groups. For example, we have a couple, Jackie and Sam, that share household expenses. You would add Jackie and Sam in these fields. Next, set the potential allocation methods you expect to use. You can choose equal share, which splits costs evenly among the parties listed above, or custom percentages, where you can enter specific percentages for each person. And you can have up to 2 different scenarios for these custom splits. In our example with Jackie and Sam, you can see that the equal share method splits expenses 50-50. But let's say Jackie pays 100% for some bills, while others are split 60-40. That's where you'd use the custom percentages options. One scenario that often comes up is when couples have a joint bank account that covers some expenses. In this case, you can list it as one of the payers like I'm showing here. I'm adding into the third field, joint account. In this scenario, equal splitting wouldn't make sense, so that's where you'd use the custom fields to provide the scenarios that Jackie and Sam would use to split expenses. Let's assume 50-50 for some and 60-40 for others. When using custom percentages, you should populate the gray cell with a short description, like I'm doing here, so it carries through the spreadsheet. For the rest of the demo, I'll use a 4-person example so you can see how it works in this scenario. I've got here Alfred, Cindy, Frank, and Henry, along with their allocation methods set up. The next section is determining what types of expenses and categories of expenses you want to settle and track over time. We've got some default ones set up, but these are absolutely meant to be updated to whatever is relevant to you. There is so much variability between households, so this should be designed specifically for you. Categories drive 2 things. First, you can choose a different allocation method by category, so think of grouping expenses that follow the same allocation method together. Second, you'll see some of the reporting and summaries at the end total up category expenses, so you may want to think about what overall categories you'd like to see roll-ups on, even if the allocation method is common. With the categories and expense types plotted in, you now simply choose what allocation method you want to use for each category by checking the appropriate box. Once you do that, you'll see the specific percentages populate to the right as confirmation. That's all the setup required. All of those entries are used throughout the rest of the tabs to make it consistent and easy to use. Now let's move to the expense log. This is where you'll record all your shared expenses. Each row represents one expense. Here's how it works. For the description, you'll choose from the drop-down, which is based on all the expense types you listed on the Setup tab. If you come across new ones during the year, just go add them to the appropriate category on the Setup tab and it will now show in the drop-down list. Notes is an optional field if you need to provide any context. For instance, if your category expense is broad, like subscriptions, you may want to add a note on which subscriptions the expense is for. Next, select the month from the drop-down, enter the total amount of the expense, and choose who paid for it. The best thing about this tool is its simplicity. After selecting those few values, the rest of the calculations and summaries are done, and we move on to the settlement and payment stage. Let's now go to the Payments tab. Here, there are 3 sections. The first section simply lists all of the expenses and recaps what individual settlements need to occur based on the allocation method and who paid the bill. This isn't something you need to review in detail, but it's always there if you need to refer back. The middle section provides a summary of who owes who what after everything that's occurred on the left side. It reflects the net payment between each party given the amounts they owe each other, minimizing the number of transactions that need to be done back and forth. The last section on the right is where you capture payments that are requested and confirmed. Let's say we're settling the month of October. We can actually just copy and paste from the settlement area into these 3 columns here. Add the month and any notes if needed. Once payments are confirmed, just click the checkbox, and you'll see the settlement area in the middle automatically reduces by that completed payment. When new expenses are added, you'll see outstanding settlements increase again. Having documented what expenses were incurred and how they were allocated and settled, you can now look at the Total Overview tab. This gives you a clear picture of what's going on. At the top, there's a monthly breakdown where you can see the total expenses for each category as well as each party split by month. Below, there's a deep dive for each party as well as the total. It shows what the overall cumulative expenses have been across all expense types and categories. This table should look familiar to how you entered it on the Setup tab. Also on this tab is a recap of outstanding settlements that shows who owes whom and how much. It's a repeat of the same middle section on the previous tab for easy reference. Finally, this pie chart visually shows the category breakout of expenses your household is incurring so far in the year. Here are a few tips to get the most out of your tracker. Update the expense log regularly to avoid falling behind. Use clear descriptions so everyone knows what each expense is for. And review the Summary tab monthly to stay on top of things. And that's it! With just a few clicks, you'll have a clear and fair way to manage shared expenses. Thanks for watching. If you found this tutorial helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. If you don't already have this Couples and Roommates expense tracker, you can find it in my shop, StepAhead Sheets. The link is in the description. Happy tracking, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.